Howdy, and welcome to the Feed Bandit Podcast, where we have fun talking all things hunting, and in the process, do our best to support small and family-owned businesses in the hunting space. Here are your hosts and resident bandits, Jimmy Byrne and Richard Kinchlow. Hey everybody, Jimmy here with Richard here for another edition of the Feed Bandit Podcast. How you doing, sir?
Good, sir. Good to be back here.
Absolutely. So today, I think what we wanted to talk about was how duck hunting was going so far. Just give kind of a recap of, what you've seen out there and what's worked, what hasn't, and any interesting stories or anecdotes you got. You're the between the two of us, the duck hunting guru for sure. Not so much me. I guess I usually elect to sit in the deer blind in the morning.
Yeah, well, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. It's cold. It's a lot of work. Those waders are miserable, but it's just something about wing shooting. I mean, I cannot get enough of it. And of course, seeing the dog work is a lot of fun too. So yeah, I had high hopes for this duck season because my dove season was so terrible, and I just got out of therapy from a bad dove season. So,
well, the regular listeners suffered with us.
Yeah,
talk about this.
Yeah, you can hear me being a little bee about it, but yeah. So our duck season opened up. The official regular season opened up the first weekend or second weekend in November. Of course, I was there in the morning, right at 30 minutes before sunrise, ready to rock and roll. Was a little concerned about the amount of traffic I'd get on this particular tank because of the fact that coming in that evening, I just didn't see a lot of birds in general. So that is typically a good indicator that you may have some problems. We also have a massive lake near us as well. That's 20,000 acres. So that's a draw for the ducks as well. The area that we hunt in is generally not the best for ducks, but we get enough to keep us entertained. So unfortunately, I could actually hear the hunters on that lake going crazy. Obviously well in the distance. But for me, it was pretty bad. I think I ended up seeing a few, and I think I shot one. I had to go back, but it was pretty disappointing. It's funny that the tanks have come up so much since because of all the rain that obliterated our dove season. So there's just a lot of available water out there, and there's not only a lot of water, but there's a lot of food too. A lot of the grasses and whatnot that that were growing up we're now underwater. So it's really become a heaven for the migratory birds, and that's great. That's what you want. These migratory birds travel hundreds and thousands of miles, so you'd love to give them something to eat if anything. So, but yeah, so the first go at it was definitely disappointing. Fast forward, unfortunately, I was kind of my last time to really hunt until Thanksgiving. Took a couple of days, and about 2 days before Thanksgiving, we went back out at it, and we had some substantial cold fronts come through. When I say substantial, I mean the morning lows were in the I think 30, which again is pretty damn cold for us. So we had a ton of birds in the area. I talked to one of the guys, and he said he saw a whole bunch of ducks on the tank to the tune of about 100 to about 200. He said.
Wow.
So for me, that tells me that those are definitely diver ducks. We kind of talked about the two differences between you get the puddle ducks, which are your gadwalls, your widgeons, your teals, your mallards, your shovelers. And then you have your diver ducks, which are your scalps, your redheads, your ringnecks, canvasbacks, ducks like that. And typically, from my experience, when you see those big numbers, they're typically the diver ducks. And
why is that?
And sure, I don't know, to be really honest with you. I just in our particular area, that's kind of what it seems like it is. You'll occasionally see big groups of teal. But typically I don't see puddle ducks more than about 10 or 15, of one particular species at a time. Now, but again, with the diver ducks, I mean, God, we had 60 redheads on the tank last year. Just a beautiful sight. So I'm not really sure. I guess we just had a lot of them. So
are the divers are the puddles and divers both equally migratory, or maybe or one or the other more so, or something? Or
yeah, that's a great question. From my experience, I'm not a duckologist, but the smallest of the puddle ducks, which will be the teal. The teal, they even get indication that it's getting cold, and they're out of there. They leave from the north and head south, and that's why Texas has the early teal season, which is one of my most favorite times of years, which we have one good hunt. They get a video on it. It's a pretty terrible video, but I'm getting better. And then typically early on, we'll definitely kill some puddle ducks. Early on, gadwalls, widgeons, and whatnot, but later in the season, when it starts to get real cold up north, is when we typically hammer the divers. So, seeing this many diver ducks on this particular place we're hunting was a little rare. Again, in January, not a problem. Late December, absolutely, but God, it was fun. So I was chomping at the bit with anticipation on the following morning, and I had my daughter there with me, and we were bundled up, and she loves it. She absolutely loves it. Sitting by the water, freezing her little booty off. I've got her dressed up to where she looks like she's about to explode. And we're going through all those exercises. Oh, absolutely, I am. Absolutely, yeah. So she's, wiggling her toes and kind of moving her legs to keep her warm, because typically she's good for about 30 or 40 minutes once below freezing, and then she's done. And I don't blame her. She's 7, and she's, of course, I'm pretty much done too. But it was one of those magical mornings. We always talk about, and for the real hunter, the real conservationist, the time out there in the bush, out there in the wild, it cannot be measured by the volume of game that you shoot, or all the blood that you spill. It's really about the experiences that you have out there, interacting with nature. One of the coolest things about duck hunting, if you've never experienced it, you got to, because you're missing something. Is to hear the ducks come in. And I'm not talking about quacking or anything like that nature. They sound like airplanes. Mm-hmm. I mean, literally, it is absolutely fascinating. I've been doing this for 100 years, and it still gives me the goosebumps. Just to hear these little jets coming in on a wind, it is a lot of fun. So that kind of morning is really, really special. So here's kind of the paint the picture for you. It was cold. We had a north wind, which that's extremely rare. And to have wind, period, is extremely rare where we kind of hunt. I don't seem to get many good windy days, but when we do, it's perfect because we have motion in our decoys. If not, the ducks are just sitting there like they're paralyzed. And for the smart duck, they kind of they basically tell us to quack off, and then they fly somewhere else because they know that ducks don't just sit there.
Right.
So what we did was we were kind of at the south end of this tank in a shallow area where they typically like to go, and we set up we set up what's called a J hook, and basically it's just you do your decoys in kind of a J, and you hope that they kind of land in that pocket. Well, I would say probably 10 minutes before shooting light, the tank just fills up. It just every species coming in, quacking, again, the wings. And I have my Walker's game ears on, so did my daughter, so we could whisper to each other. And it just is just a magical moment, something that I really will not forget. And again, I've been doing this for a long time. I've got my bird dog in front of me who held so well. It's just amazing. It was like it was all meant to be. She's got ducks literally all over her, and she's sitting there as still as she can be. So, again, just a magical time. But
that's a testament to the owner then, huh?
Well, yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that. But, yeah, so, come shooting light, It was just a matter of, what birds were going to come into my decoys first. And sure enough, I had a couple of ringnecks coming to my decoys, and started off with a bang, literally dropped two right there. And the second I dropped that two, all hell broke loose, and there's a 75 to 100 other ducks flew up and are just really upset with me and quacking at me. Of course, they made the big mistake of flying over me, and I ended up getting, I think, two more out of that, which was a bad idea on their part. Ended up getting, 6 total, which is the limit. Majority ringnecks, and I think I killed a teal, which the teal's one of my favorite ducks. So
why is that?
A magical morning. I don't limit out often at all. Truth be told, if I can get 2 or 3 ducks, I'm extremely happy. Shooting a limit, I didn't know what to do with myself.
Why is it teal your favorite?
The teal are my favorite just because I think they're really pretty looking. They remind me of dove because they're so fast. They're also, I hate to knock on, but they're kind of gullible. Mm-hmm. So they're easier to shoot. As far as they're more susceptible to decoys. Okay. I also enjoy the meat. It's just like eating a big dove. You can breast them out real easily. So, I love them. And then probably my second favorite duck would be the American widgeon. And I actually shot a couple of widgeons. Got a beautiful drake. Oh, they are just gorgeous. It is absolutely amazing the how these ducks the way they look. Yeah, sure. You really just can't imagine it.
Do you have good pictures of these?
I do. I certainly do.
Post along with this episode.
Absolutely.
All
you
right,
bet.
awesome.
I got a really good picture of one of these American widgeon drakes. So
nice.
Great hunt. Just had a ball. Loved it so much. I got up the next morning, did the exact same thing. Ended up shooting another limit. Unfortunately, I was only able to recover 5 because I had another ringer that just an incredible shot. Incredible. This duck was up there with the 747-800s, and he was whacking at me, and I drilled him. Well, the tank's gotten bigger. It's about 10 acres now. So when I drilled him, he landed smack dab in the middle of the tank. I'm not sure if the shot killed him or the fall, because it was a smack. But unfortunately, my blind dog, who turns 10 tomorrow, by the way, she could
Happy
not
birthday,
see him.
Scarlett.
Yeah, well, she's in the other room. She better not be on our new couch. The wife will freak. But she couldn't see him, unfortunately, and so it was kind of funny. I put my waders on there, and I have chest waders and I have hip waders, and I prefer to wear my chest waders or my hip waders because they're lighter, they're easier to put on, and so what I kind of do is, and here's a little tip for you. Obviously walking in ice cold water is very dangerous, especially by yourself. So what I typically will do is when I'm wading out into an area, first of all, obviously baby steps is key. The other thing that I do is I kind of pull my waders up on my gut, and I'll put my thumbs in my waistband, my waders, and I'll put my fingers kind of right in front. This is probably wondering where I'm going with this, but what I basically do is I start to walk like that very slowly. And if that water hits my fingers, I know that I've got about an inch to go, and then I need to back up. Well, I always do that. So when I was trying to get out to this duck, because where this duck landed, I knew it was a little bit more shallow, and I literally came at it from 3 different angles, trying to get out there to get it. So and unfortunately, I could not recover it. But talking, we did an episode not too long ago talking about deer hunting, and if you don't recover a deer, same with a duck. That thing was catfish food, probably within a couple of hours. So, but yeah, no.
You didn't have your fishing pole with you?
I thought about that, and I was going through the logistics of all that, and I seriously don't know if I had a lure big enough, and heavy enough to get it out there. And I thought, well, maybe I'll launch the boat, and I'll have a battery, and it's windy. Dude, anyway. But yeah, so but it was a lot of fun. Fast forward to this past weekend, went back out again. Didn't have the numbers. We had a couple of fronts, kind of come and gone, and but ended up with a few. Shot another really nice American widgeon. I think I got another teal. So it's still just a lot of fun. Seeing that the tank as full as it is after where we were back in July is just a miracle. So now that December's here, hoping to do a little bit more hunting. We'll be going next weekend after Christmas in January. So the strategy will start to change as as time wears on. The ducks get smarter. There's no doubt. Right now I've actually got a Dove Mojo that I put in my spread, and it has been very effective. But come the middle of December, I will remove that, and I will also only use a handful of decoys because they really start.
They call you out.
They do. They really do. It's actually kind of funny. So the strategy will definitely change later in the season. I've been reading that we're supposed to have some pretty chilly temperatures, so hopefully that'll bring some more birds down here. So that is exciting. Speaking of something else exciting, on that same morning with my daughter, where we got the stringer full of ringers. Something else that I had happened to me, which is it's happened once or twice before, but not recently. The mallard drake is a real noisy brute, and typically in the morning, from my experience, you will hear them really sound off. Of course, all the duck calls are really styled after the mallard. As far and all the call sequences, the feed call, the hail call, the greeting call, the come over here, let's have fun, we're ducks call, all that kind of stuff. So, hearing a mallard that in the morning is kind of funny because you think, oh my God, that sounds like me, So on our neighbor's tank, I heard a big old bull mallard get up, and right before shooting light, he started doing his little hail call. And I'm assuming, typically they do that because they see other ducks and they want them to join the party. Mallards are sociable birds, apparently. So it was funny. I started hail calling back at him, and then he started hail calling back at me. And it was so noticeable that my 7-year-old daughter was like, "Daddy, that daddy duck's talking to you," Just again, a really, really cool experience for her to hear. So.
Would it be funny if that was just another duck hunter over there on that tank?
Yeah,
and
it would be. It would be. No, there's no doubt. There's no doubt. So, it is funny. I've actually had last year. I had a same thing happened. I don't know if that duck was on his tank or on one of our tanks somewhere else that was closer. But I actually had that I'm assuming it's that duck come over it and actually investigate us, which was really funny, and that was a bad choice on his part because we took him out. So
nice.
But it's been fun. I think I'm up to like 18 ducks this year, which I sometimes keep count my birds. It's a bad habit, but a lot of fun. Going to be hopefully be filming some stuff in the later winter, maybe doing some cooking with them and stuff like that. Ducks are really good, but the ducks and the geese, there you find a lot of folks that don't like them. The meat's extremely rich, so there are definitely some ways you can really kind of tone that down. And I've learned that. We actually will, after I'm done prepping the ducks, typically a couple of days, kind of bleeding them out, maybe soaking them in buttermilk or Italian dressing. We make them like into duck quesadillas, little strips inside tortillas on with some cheese, and they're fantastic. Everybody eats them,
Mm-hmm.
And that says a lot for ducks because again, it's not a very desirable meat. It ain't no turkey, let's put it that way. So
right.
But a lot of fun.
What I'm curious, just to jump back to discussion about different types of ducks. Yeah. You have your puddle duck and your diver duck. What's the difference between the two, other than I guess one of them dives and maybe the other doesn't?
Right. Yeah. Well, it's an Olympics thing, you know. So Yeah, you got the high diving ducks, and you got the the breaststroke butterfly ducks, things of that nature. No, not it's a terrible Olympic swimming joke. Now the puddle ducks are first and foremost are going to be bigger, okay, except for the teal. All right, the mallards and the gadwalls, the widgeons are relatively big ducks, especially the mallards and the gadwalls. Their feet are going to be a little bit smaller because they don't have to use them to dive as deep. They call them puddle ducks because that's where they feed. They feed kind of in the shallows. Okay, so you're going to see them up against the banks, kind of in more your shallower areas of your ponds and lakes and tanks. Okay. The diver ducks are completely different. The diver ducks will have big feet, and I've actually got a video of them, and I'll try to get a picture of them, God willing, next weekend. The diver ducks have got bigger feet, and of course that's because they're looking videos of them, it's pretty fascinating watching them dive as deep as they do, and they're going to be eating crustaceans, things of that nature, freshwater clams. Things of that nature. I believe they will also eat, the duckweed, kind of the grains and grasses that the puddle ducks eat. But they're typically going to be out there, kind of in the middle, getting all that. So, that's really kind of the big difference. And I think another thing is they typically will come down a little bit later. And also, actually, they tend to go back a little bit later too. It's not uncommon to have divers on our tanks in February. So, I will tell you the other thing that I have noticed, and I actually pointed this out on the video. We have a video I'm going to post eventually about. I was cleaning 2 ducks. I have a green-winged teal hen and a ringneck hen. And I know I showed the difference between their feet size. But I also the skin on the diver ducks is significantly tighter, and I don't know why that is, but typically you can kind of like a turkey, you can kind of grab a hold of that skin and kind of pull it and use your fillet knife to kind of fillet it off. Filleting puddle ducks is pretty easy. Diver ducks can be very challenging because again that skin is just plastered to that meat.
It's like less drag as you're going through the water, maybe, or something.
Could be. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So
when you're sitting there,
yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No. I'll just say it's a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah. So when you're sitting there in the morning, how do you determine what actual call to use? Because you talked about these different calls that the mallards do, or how the calls are, I guess, designed kind of after that and everything. But then, how do you know? Right. Is it based on what time you are in the season, or is it you just wait to hear something and then sure. I mean, like, what do you do?
Yeah, typically, you actually nailed it. Typically, it's really kind of the time of the season first and foremost. You're early in the season, you can call a little bit more, okay, and that's okay, that's acceptable as long as you kind of know what you're doing. It's not gonna bother them. Late in the season, I sometimes won't even take out my calls. Coming to the end of January, I won't even take it out just because they are so spooky. Mm-hmm. Now you've as sometimes I say that, but I've got a little teal whistle, the male teal, some of the other ducks, pintails, widgeons, they kind of whistle. And I found that the whistle is a little harmless, but you can really screw up a quack, and then that'll flare them every time. So typically in the mornings, I will do what's called right at first light. I will do what's called the hail call, and that's the mallard, down there on the water, seeing the other ducks circling and saying, "Hey, come on, we're having a good time down here. Beer's on me," And so that and they know that. And again, that's when that mallard was talking to me a couple of weeks ago. That's what he was doing. Look at other ducks circling and tell them to come in and join. And then I'll typically follow the hail call up with a feed call, which if you listen to ducks, like puddle ducks feeding, it's a and that's them kind of them with their beaks down the water, kind of basically chewing is what it amounts to. And of course, so then you've got the greeting call, hey, life is good. And then, oh, hell, we're pounding some groceries. This is great. Come on down here. Mm-hmm. And those are typically the two that I stick with. Now, after I've shot at some birds and I know there are more birds in the area, I will do what's called the comeback call, which is like the hail call, but it's a little bit more in depth. It's a quack, 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 quack. It's like you're pleading with them.
Right. It's kind of whining, like, why are you leaving me?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, don't mind that, breaking the sound barrier sound you just heard. It's nothing to be worried about. But that's about it. And then really I'll mix in some whistles. Again, just the teal whistles, just a single peep. And that's pretty harmless. So again, it depends on the time of year, it depends on what you're looking at. But kind of like with turkey hunting, really, in my opinion, the less calling, the better. You want to try to be as realistic as possible. So honestly, a lot of my time up in Lubbock, all those beautiful years, sitting at those tanks, looking at all those ducks and geese, was me just listening to them, Mm-hmm. And it was actually kind of funny because I was just kind of learning the duck call. Then they would look at me like, my God, what is wrong with that thing, But that's really where I learned it, watch.
We hope your aim is as bad as your call.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's funny. You also said you put your decoys out like in a J hook. Is that what you said? The kind of fashion. How many and how far out do you typically do that?
Right. Well, it's going to depend. How many you use really depends on the area that you're hunting. If you're down the Texas coast early season, those guys put out dozens of decoys. Because they really need to. They want them to be seen. It's realistic. Things of that nature. Some other places, they'll put out 24 decoys, and they'll put some floaters, some in the water and then some on land, and I'll kind of do the same. And early in the season, I'll put I've got some standing mallards I'll put on the shore. And that's great. When it's windy, they kind of rock and it looks awesome. And then I'll put some floaters out there. Typically I won't use any more than about, 10 floaters and, 2 or 3 standards. It's just because typically I'm by myself and it's a lot of work and I'm lazy. So, but again, towards the end of the season, I get rid of the standards. I get rid of the what do you call it? I'm getting tired. The Mojo decoys.
Oh, the Mojo.
And then, yeah. I'll get rid of the Mojo decoy, and then I will. I'll cut that number of decoys back to 4, something of that nature. And so it also depends on the type of water that you're hunting too. Some of the big tanks, you can get away with more. Some of the smaller tanks, especially when real estate's at a premium, you don't want to crowd them. So, right. So yeah, that's kind of how I judge. And as far as the type of decoys I use, of course, there's billions of brands. And anybody listening, if they're a new, if they're into the duck decoy manufacturing, you'd like me to test some, I'd be more than happy to do so. I'll give you my address at the end of this. But I typically will use a lot of just puddle ducks. I use a mixed bag of mallards, gabwalls, widgeons, and teal. And I will also have, I typically have what I do is I got them Texas rig, so they're on a piece of clear cordage that's about, I think it's about 2 or 3 feet with a big drop weight on the end of it, and with a loop, and I put in a carabiner so I can throw over my shoulder, and I'm really easy. So I've got several carabiners full of ducks. Some that got some pintails. I've also got a dedicated teal batch where I've got 15 little teal decoys. Don't put them all out normally, but just to make it quick, and all I got to do is unclick that carabiner and just throw them. It's super easy, and that's called a Texas rig.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, I guess my last question, I'm just curious, is out of all the ducks that come through here where we hunt,
right?
What would be the one or maybe 2 kind of rare ones that if you actually were to shoot, that you should absolutely probably get mounted? because
Sure.
it'd be tough to find another one.
Oh, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, it is my intention to really mount every species.
Okay.
I would absolutely love to. Have I done that? No. But I would say, just from a beauty standpoint, the wood duck is incredible. The wood duck typically, sticks to the smaller tanks. And that's why I've actually killed a few wood duck drakes in smaller tanks, not on the big ones.
Now, what does a wood duck look like? Just in general?
The wood duck is probably, out of all the North American ducks, is probably the most beauty. I mean, it's quite frankly difficult to explain how pretty they look like. Okay. But I mean, look it up when you get a chance. They're gorgeous. They don't quack. They kind of whistle and whine. They prefer smaller bodies of water. They actually nest in trees. We got a lot of local wood ducks in Texas. They migrate, but I don't think they migrate as much as like the other puddlers do. So look them up. They're awesome. But as far as rare ducks, kind of in the area that we hunt, again, Central Texas area, top of the hill country, whatever you want to call it, don't get a lot of pintails. I've shot maybe 2 or 3 pintails in the time that we've been at the Rancho Bandito, and canvasbacks. The canvasback is the biggest of the diver ducks, and they're big. They're about the size of a widgeon, about the size of a gabwall. And actually, Matt and I got into some canvasbacks a couple of years ago. In fact, it was the day after I drank all that Sunkist, if you remember that story. Which, I was like, man, I'm glad I drank it back yesterday and not that morning. That's a story not for the faint of heart. But,
right.
So the pintail and the canvasback would definitely be ones that I would mount. I did mount one of my canvasbacks. Probably the duck that I desire to harvest the most, because I've shot them all for the most part, as I am dying to shoot a cinnamon teal. Again, I love the teal. We get the blue wings like it's going out of style in during early teal season, and then they typically blow through, and then the green wing teal come down. That's what we're shooting right now, during the regular duck season. But the cinnamon teal, they're typically more of a West Coast bird. So I've heard of a few being shot in Texas, but not a lot. But man, I don't know what I'd do if I got one of those. They're gorgeous. I highly recommend.
Well, you would mount it, is what you would do.
Oh yeah, sure, yeah, for sure. So, but man, they're cool. They're cool little birds, no doubt.
All right.
Yep.
Well, awesome. I think that's a good place to stop on this one. Unless do you have anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, not really. I think I'm good. I hope we get into them next weekend. I'll be real excited. They always give me a hard time because they all go deer hunting in the morning.
Right.
I'm going duck hunting, but I know they're jealous. You got to join me one of these days.
I know it's been a couple of years.
Yeah,
you're right. I do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, when does the season end? Does it coincide with end of deer season?
No. It's late. It's late January for us.
All right. So well, maybe towards the end of the season, I'll join.
Yeah. That's perfect timing when they're super spooky and
right.
You have to have a howitzer to shoot them. So.
Yeah. Well, maybe that can be arranged. We'll see.
That's true.
All right. Well, awesome. Good
stuff.
You mentioned you'd love to do any kind of gear review for duck hunting.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, that's absolutely not just duck hunting, but anything. If someone has an item of gear that they'd like us to take a look at and do a write-up, or
absolutely.
We'd also love to talk to you on the podcast about it. Shoot us an email. You can email us at howdy@feedbandit.com to get in touch with us to do that, or you can just go to the website, feedbandit.com/contact, and that's our contact form. It goes to the same email address, so either way. But shoot us a message at howdy@feedbandit.com, and we'll get with you, and we'll figure out a way to get you more exposure to our listeners. So we'd love to do that for you.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, any last words before we sign off?
I think that's it. Be safe out there in the field. Remember to keep sending us pictures. We're loving to see the pictures and the stories. Keep it up. Hunting is as much about camaraderie as it is about shooting stuff. So even though we may not know you personally, we'd love to try to get to know you. So keep it up. We're really enjoying it.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you all for listening. And we'll see you on the next Feed Bandit podcast. And remember, support your local feed store. Thanks for listening to the Feed Bandit podcast. If you want to find new and innovative hunting gear and service providers not typically offered through the traditional big box hunting stores, come on over and join the hunt at feedbandit.com/join. When you join, as a bonus, you'll get our entertaining free e-guide of unique hunting tips and tricks. And a reminder to all you small businesses, feed stores, gear inventors, or entrepreneurs in the hunting space, if you'd like to get more exposure to potential customers by being featured on the Feed Bandit podcast, please let us know. We'd love to discuss what we can do for you and your business. Go to feedbandit.com/promote. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give us a rating and review on iTunes, as it would really help us out. Go to feedbandit.com/iTunes. Thanks everyone for listening. Until next time, please remember to support your local feed store.